Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to do this video. Thanks for tuning in. It's going to be a video where I attempt, and that's always the word I like to use, attempt to rank all of Ringo Starr's solo studio albums. And I'm going to put them in the order, which is kind of different from how it's usually done. Usually it's done from like the least to the best. I'm going to do from the best down to the least. What really made me want to do this is I've had a lot of Ringo stuff on the brain lately because I recently was a co-host for the show Talk More Talk, which you can check out. It's a video cast where four of us discuss different Beatles or solo Beatles. Usually, it's a solo Beatles cast uh, subject. So the last subject of this past show was Ringo the Fourth, that particular album, and we decided whether or not it was the worst or not. And well, you can watch the show for yourself. It's on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to go pretty quick here. Now, the first album, which I consider number one, and a lot of people watching this, it's going to come as no surprise to anybody, I'm sure. It's the 1973 self-titled album, Ringo. This is just, it's a great album. It's not only a great solo Beatles album, it's not only a great Ringo album, I consider it a great album, period. A lot of times when I'm talking about Ringo Starr albums, I'll say, well, this album or that album is a good album for Ringo. It's a good Ringo record. I kind of hold Ringo kind of a little differently when I'm rating his albums because Ringo obviously is not as shall we say talented as in the vocal department and songwriting department, say, as of course Paul McCartney, John Lennon, and George Harrison. But this is one album that is a classic, and regardless of whether it's Ringo or not, it just belongs in a collection. It's a good album. Number two is a 1992 album called Time Takes Time. And this is kind of a comeback album for Ringo after he sobered up and really decided he was going to just make records and tour. This is a fantastic album. Every song is pretty much a winner on here. Maybe there's one or so that I like a little less, but basically, this is a really pleasant listen. I have to, I say this anytime I show this album, I have to urge anybody who has some interest in Ringo Starr and the Beatles to give this a chance and get back to me. Let me know if you like it because I think it's a really strong record. And this album, sadly, in 1992, did not chart. Very, very, very sad because it's a really good album. And for Ringo's confidence, I would have liked it to do well, or at least get in the top 20. It's that good of a record. But it didn't chart at all on the Billboard Top 200 in the U.S., which is what I'm really referring to as U.S. charts. Number three, I went with the 1974 follow-up to the first Ringo one. This is Goodnight Vienna. Great cover. I love the cover on this. From the Day the Earth Stood Still. And, a lot of good stuff on here. I don't think it's as good as Ringo, which is why, of course, I don't have it as high. But there's a few filler tracks on here, but still Ringo at his peak in the 70s, early 70s, I should stress. And good stuff. That's album number three. Now, those three albums were pretty easy to rank, but when you start getting to the rest of the albums, there's difficulty. And that's because after you get through the first three, four, maybe even five, I'll say, the rest of Ringo's albums are kind of, whether you want to call them enjoyable or not enjoyable, to me, they're all kind of equal. There's not really any change in the album. They're kind of like just par for the course. So it's hard to assign a special number to each one of them. So for number four, I went with this album, which a lot of people might frown on, but I really enjoy this album from 1981. It's Ringo's album called Stop and Smell the Roses. Once again, as he's done so many times in the past, he gets a little help from his friends. I neglected to mention that, of course, the self-titled Ringo album also had the other three Beatles on it. This one has a song on here, or two songs at least, by Paul McCartney. Rack My Brain was written by George Harrison, which was the closest thing to kind of a hit single. It was in the top 40 in the US, I believe, somewhere around there. It's also other people help, Harry Nielsen and so on. So this is a really enjoyable Ringo record, as I call it. That's when I say, is it a good Ringo record or is it a bad or average Ringo record? That's a good Ringo record. Number five. Now this is really was tough for me to decide. I had so many albums that could have rounded that up the top five. what was I going to do to round it out? Well, I went with this album from 2010. This is one of the more recent kind of albums from Ringo. It's called Why Not? And I really enjoy this album. There's a little bit of everything on here. I love the song Peace Dream, very nice. With good bass guitar playing from Paul McCartney on Peace Dream. The Other Side of Liverpool is a good rocker. There's another song featuring Paul, but this time he sings with Ringo. It's a song called Walk With You. And let me tell you, it's a wonderful duet with Ringo and Paul. And it's worth it for that alone. What other good songs on here? Fill in the blanks. I love the song called Everyone Wins, which I think Ringo did earlier, but this is kind of where he really released it on an official album. Everyone Wins, and just a lot of fun, this album. I think it's pretty good. And I should mention that Why Not got to number 58 on the Billboard Top 200 now. And that's Ringo's highest charting album, or an album that charted at all in a long time. So that's number 5. So that's the top 5. It was really hard to do it because this next album I'm going to show you, the next 3 albums I'm going to show you, let's see, could have been in the top 5. Either one, any of these could have went in the top 5. This one here, Ringo's As of This Date, is the most recent album from Ringo from 2017. It's called Give More Love. And there's just a lot of good stuff on here. I could name the songs, but strong showing from Ringo. A couple of country-ish tunes that are really nice. Uh, I love the song "Speed of Sound." Sound familiar? Well, nothing to do with Paul and Wings. But I love the song "King of the Kingdom" on here, which is kind of a reggae tune. Really, one of my favorite tracks, maybe my favorite right now. "Electricity." Good songs on this album. A good offering from Ringo. Okay, so I had that at number 6. Now we're up to number 7. And as I say, this is another contender that could have been in the top 5. This is Ringo's Rotogravure. A lot of people, again, will be like, huh? How the hell is this thing so high up there? Well, over the years, I've really become more fond of this record, and I think it's an underrated record. It's gotten to the point where I would say that about it. Again, we had input here from John Lennon, who wrote a song, Paul McCartney, who wrote a song, George Harrison, who wrote a song, Eric Clapton, who wrote a song, and there's other people on here as well, Dr. John. Um, some good tunes on this album, enough for me to put it up at number 7. Number 8, here's an album that is the first one I have to show that's on CD only as of this date. Uh, and it's Ringo's 1998 album. A lot of people like this one. It's called Vertical Man. Only available on CD right now. This is one of the ones that really seriously has got to be put on vinyl LP. There's a bunch of albums that have not yet been on that vinyl format. Lots of good stuff on here. I love the single La Di Da, which I think was pure Ringo. That's perfect Ringo and should have been a hit, would have been a hit had it been released in the 70s, even maybe the early 80s. I mean, La Di Da is terrific, but there's other good stuff on here too. King of Broken Hearts, good guitar playing on there from George Harrison. I like Drift Away, a cover version of Drift Away. Um, Lots of good stuff here. Love Me Do remake. Ringo gives his own flavor. Good album. Needs to be on vinyl. Anybody listening? Okay. So now that was number 8. Now for number 9, I'm going to show an album that a lot of people would put way at the bottom. I don't put it way at the bottom myself. I enjoy this record. It's another one that I've come to have a good time with. It's the Bad Boy album from Ringo in 1978. It kind of went along with a TV special that Ringo had in 1978. And there's really a lot of good tracks on here. Who Needs a Heart, cover version of Bad Boy, Lipstick Traces, Heart on My Sleeve, Hard Times Tonight, A Man Like Me. The more I read this, I think this could have been put up a little bit more. Maybe I put it too far down in my list here at number 9. But maybe the next list I do another year, I'll put it up higher. Now we're going to round out the top 10. And there are 19 albums here. I should mention, I don't know if I said this at the top, it's only studio albums, no live albums, no compilation albums. Rounding out the top 10, a lot of people may also be confused about this. I put Sentimental Journey, which is Ringo's first solo album, and this has a lot of great production on it, great instrumentation. I think very good singing from Ringo, considering. I mean, Ringo's voice is good on this album. I think it sounds terrific. You know, when this first came out, I mean, people were like, "What the heck is going on here?" Ringo's singing old standards. This is American standard. You know, Ringo was probably the first pop star, rock star to do an album like this. You know, since then we had all other people doing it. You know, Linda Ronstadt, Rod Stewart, Paul McCartney with his "Kisses on the Bottom" album. But you know, Ringo was the first and the trendsetter. And I used to like just shun this album. This is stuff my grandmother used to listen to. But you know what? I think Ringo does a good job on it. Enough for me to put it in the top 10 right now. Okay, number 11. Here's the album that I was alluding to that I said we discussed on the Talk More Talk solo Beatles videocast show. Check it out. All four of us were discussing Ringo the Fourth. I put it here at number 11. Um, Given this more and more thought, I'm beginning to think I really enjoy it. I enjoy most of the songs on here. Ringo does not sing in great form here. This was really at the peak of his alcoholism, and nevertheless, though, I just like it as a kind of memento of that time period, kind of a disco like. You know, it's not strict disco, this album, but it's disco E. I call it disco E. You know, has a little bit of that kind of 70s sound of the era. And I have a good time with it. It is a fun record. It's not Ringo's best record, but it's fun. Number 12, maybe fittingly at number 12, is an album called Ringo 2012. Not very creative title, not a very creative stance, Ringo with his patented peace sign. But there are actually tracks on here that are really good. Standing out for me is the number one song on here. It's a song called Wings, which is a song that was written by Ringo and his pal Vinnie Poncia, and was originally recorded, on on this particular album. But there's been a little controversy. Which version of Wings is better? Ringo redid it here. I actually think the upgraded version here is great. It's one of this version here to me is one of Ringo's. I put it in the top 10 of all Ringo's entire career, Beatles and solo Beatles songs. So I love Wings, but I also like the song Anthem that opens up the album. I like the song Think It Over, which is a Buddy Holly cover. Ringo does a respectable version of it. I like Samba, cover version of a Rock Island Line, made famous by, I believe, Lonnie Donegan. Uh, it's a song called Wonderful that I really enjoy. There's a poor remake, in my opinion, of a song from the self-titled Ringo album that was called Step Lightly. It's on here redone. Not nowhere near as good, and doesn't really even belong on the album, in my opinion. But I put that at number. Oops, I made some mistakes, folks. I reversed them. I had the wrong one. I had that at number 13, number 12. So you know what we're gonna do? We'll put this one at number 13. I had it at number 12 on my list, but whether it's number 12 or number 13, it's not that big of a difference. It's Ringo Rama. This is a pretty respectable album by Ringo from the Mark Hudson era. It's got some good tracks on here. Standout is the tribute to George, who passed away, called Never Without You. Never Without You, a really touching Ringo tribute to George Harrison. Other good stuff here, Missouri Loves Company. I like a song here called Memphis in Your Mind, which is kind of an Elvis reference. If you Elvis fans want to listen to that song, Memphis in Your Mind. And there's also a song here I like, I believe. Oh, is it on here? Oh boy. Is Imagine Me There on here? I like a song called Imagine Me There. It's on here. Imagine Me There. Nice ballad from Ringo. We Need This Also is the second album that we need on vinyl. Hopefully that's going to come to pass at some point. I didn't know exactly where to put this one. I put it at number 14. It's a Christmas album from Ringo, and it's called I Wanna Be Santa Claus. I wasn't going to include it on here because I think a Christmas album is kind of as a separate entity, something totally different. But nevertheless, I wanted to get as many in here as I could, so I went ahead with it. I think this is a fun Christmas album. It's not terrific, it's not great, but it's fun. That's the word I use when describing Ringo. I think Ringo's charming personality and all his Ringoisms kind of really speak for themselves, kind of make Ringo more palatable to a lot of people. He gets by on his charm and wit. And this is a good example of that. So around the holidays, it's good to pull this album out, but it's not one of the best things Ringo ever did. I think it could have been even better, much better actually, but good enough for me right here to rank it at number 14. Now for number 15, I went with an album called Postcards from Paradise that came out in the year 2015. Um, the song Postcards from Paradise, the title track, a lot of people get down on it because it has Ringo doing what he's been doing so many times in the last several years, name checking Beatles songs, just rattling off titles of Beatles songs in his songs to try to get people interested. But what I like about the song Postcards from Paradise is that I love it here, I welcome it here, because it is a total tour de force. He's completely um, setting out to do that. He's kind of like parodying, spoofing himself, name checking. So I kind of like the tongue in cheek approach to it. And there's other songs here good. You Bring the Party Down. Of course, Rory and the Hurricanes, the opening track. You know, Ringo talks about Rory Storm and the Hurricanes again, which he so often does. Now, there's some good stuff on here. Let Love Lead. I like that song, Let Love Lead. And a few others. But not as good as some of the ones before it. Now, the album that I'm ranking at number 16, I'm going to say from the start, I think I'm being unfair to this album. The album I'm going to show you is an album that a lot of people love and would put easily in Ringo's top three, four, or five. And it's a country album that he made in 1970, his second album. It's called Bukus of Blues. And the reason I'm pronouncing it Bukus is because that's how Ringo sings it. I love that title track. I really think it's a great country song from Ringo. He really does country well. It suits him very well. Buku's of Blues is a great song. There's a song called Coochie Coochie that I like too, which is not part of the album, by the way. It's a B-side. But as I read the song titles, the reason I'm putting this at number 16 is because I'm not familiar with it enough. This is the only real album out of all of these that I'm not familiar with. Being that I'm not a big country guy, I like it when it's good. I don't hate country music, but I haven't given this enough of a listen, and I suspect that once I really give this more listen, it may be much higher next time. But for now, just because of the unfamiliarity and so on, I gave it a ranking of number 16. Okay, number 17, I'm going to go with this album. It's an album again on CD only as of this time called Liverpool 8. Liverpool 8 is was Ringo's Liverpool address. That's what zip code. It's a zip code, I believe. And I like the song Liverpool 8. I think that again was a potential hit single. Again, if it had been maybe released at a different time in Ringo's life, but now nobody wants to know about Ringo. Has a hard time getting listened to. But Liverpool 8, the song, is really good. And there's other songs I like on here. There's a song here called For Love, another one called Tough Love. A lot of love, spread the love. Peace and love, no autographs. I'm warning you with peace and love. But anyway, not as much good stuff on here as some of the other ones, but we still need it on vinyl anyway. Okay, I got two albums left. Now, if anybody listened to the Talk More Talk broadcast, I really kind of bashed this album, or at least a little bit. And I did a review on this. It's the album called Old Wave from 1983. And I had said on the show that this was going to be probably the dead last album, the worst album by Ringo, in my opinion. This always has fans split. Most fans love this album. I personally can't understand it. I don't think there's much good on here at all. I think it's a kind of poor album. This album was only released in Canada and only released in Germany. It didn't get a US release or a UK release. Nice picture, though. What I really love on this is a cover version of the song "She's About a Mover," which I think Ringo. It's one that performance on here, that song on here, is one of Ringo's most great rock and roll tracks of his career. That song alone is one of my all-time favorite Ringo songs. Go figure. But some of the rest of them, I like a song here called "Hopeless." It's fun, but it's kind of stupid at the same time. And the opening track "In My Car" with is Joe Walsh. Um, it's okay, but I really don't like that album. But I did find that there was one that I thought was worse, and that is this is my pick right now for Ringo's least album or worst album. I don't like using that. Choose Love. It just doesn't have a lot of good songs on it. Can't stand that. Another generic, his Ringo, sit Ringo on the cover and give another peace sign cover. I like Fading In, Fading Out, Give Me Back the Beat, Oh My Lord. That's it. There are like 12 tracks on here. The title track, Choose Love, just doesn't grab me, man. It's an awkward, clunky attempt at a hit song, and I really don't like again that he say the main line is you gotta sing the blues if you want. Well, you gotta pay your dues if you want to sing the blues, or vice versa, whatever it is. Falling back on it don't come easy to try to get a cheap hit. Not good. Anyway, there are my 19 choices in the order that I put them, and whatnot. You could take Ringo Rama and Ringo 2012 and reverse them, whatever, 12, 13, whatever. But you get the idea. Thanks everybody for tuning in.